Well, Charles, Looty and the Beast. We've got an idiot nominated for vice president, which is absolutely perfect, but we've got a very special guest today. And for people who've been watching Crowdsource the Truth for a while, I think they know when Bob Bishop comes on the show, it means that somebody needs to get indicted. Bob is with us. How are you, Charles?
I'm great. I think Bob's real name is Bob Bombshell Bishop.
Hi, Bob.
Hey, how you doing, Jason and Charles? Good to see you.
Good to see you,
Likewise.
too. So who is up next on The Indictment is Right, Bob? We've got Looty and the Beast today. Tell us what we're going to be talking about, please.
Well, I think we need to go in look into Minnesota as the two characters that really drive Minnesota now. You've got, the governor, Walz, who's now the vice presidential candidate, and we shouldn't forget the individual who is the AG of Minnesota, which Charles can probably guess who that is.
Keith Ellison, who's a horrible human being.
Yes, and he was at one point head of the Democratic Convention. He's also a Muslim. So you can imagine how effective lawfare is going to be in that state, particularly if you're a non-Muslim or non-progressive. And what I did is I was kind of digging in about 2 years ago after the election of Walz, and I noticed that there was an indictment going to be coming down on a group that's called Feeding the Future, and it was a fraudulent nonprofit organization. And so I started digging into it. So a little background on nonprofits. Anytime there's a government organization or there's grants, federal grants, state grants, or local grants over 700,000, it requires a special audit. It's called a single audit, and it must be filed with Harvester, with the federal government, available to the public. So I started digging into the Harvester, looking at Feeding the Future, and I found out there weren't any federal audits. Now, the government requires these audits to be done, and it's their only way that they can justify through the CPA firms that the grants are being used according to what they're designated to, and there's proper internal controls. Now, some of you long-term viewers may be aware of the Clinton Foundation when I was successful with an administrative complaint with them, and there was intentional or unintentional misrepresentations that were material. So this has the smellings of a large diversion of funds. And then recently, I got a letter from the accountancy board when I filed the complaint and laid out the issues that they did censor the CPA and his firm. And we could pull up that letter, if you will, Jason, and we can kind of show the public.
This is the one, right, Bob?
Yeah, that's where they acknowledged that I'd sent it 2 years ago. And then after they eventually convicted part of the cabal that were basically individuals that were, I would call them sub-Saharan immigrants, migrants, whatever you want to call them. So if you scroll down, you'll see the ruling by the Minnesota Accountancy Board. And what they did is they let me know that I had contributed to the complaint, and it came out that they gave basically a life sentence to the CPA firm that they could no longer practice. And it was a sole practitioner that ran it, whose individual's name is Charles Amivo, I guess. He appears to be a migrant himself, by the way. So he didn't do the job. He got fined $20,000. He lost his permit for a CPA firm. But I would argue that this individual is a co-conspirator. And I think that he should be subject to being criminally indicted. He has not been to date.
Amazing.
But anyhow, he can't go out and do any more business, thankfully.
As an accountant.
He'll just use a different name, Bob.
Yeah, or get into some other kind of crooked business, right?
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely. Maybe open up his own nonprofit.
Wow.
Or run for Congress.
That's the most lucrative way to steal money, apparently.
But
But so
Go ahead.
Bob, how does this connect to Walz? How does this connect to Walz?
Well, basically, I couldn't find a direct connection, but obviously it benefits, the Muslim Somalian community, this money being divvied out to individuals. It was $250 million. There's a thing that you could open up, Jason, showing the amount of fraud that's going on in Minnesota.
Was that one of the links, Bob?
Yeah, that's one of the first links, I think.
Rapid fraud, is that the one?
Yeah, rapid fraud.
Here we go.
If we can open that up, this is a citizen journalist who started digging in, which caught my eye, feeding our future. There's $250 million right there. This thing was
It's
going
outrageous.
Yeah, and then you look at the child care assistance program.
Well, look at this. What is it? Is this all coming from the Minnesota Attorney General? What is USAO? What is all this, Bob?
I really don't know. I haven't dug into it.
Wow.
But you look down into it, Medicaid, unemployment benefits, SNAP, Medicaid. It's outrageous. $500 million in the last couple of years that's been grifted out of their state and federal funds. I'm asking where's Larry Ellison in all this? I mean, instead of
Keith Ellis.
Keith Ellis, instead of somebody being a whistleblower and going to the feds. It's crazy.
Well, I think the only question is whether Ellison is at 10 or 33%.
Yeah.
I mean,
Undoubtedly 33.
Yeah.
We've got a lot more here, Bob. You've put together a lot of stuff.
But 48 people were charged in $250 million in food grants. And this is a problem that I've noticed in another case I was involved in Mississippi. These food grants are block grants given to the state, and then the state gives it out to their favorite sons to use and abuse. And it's outrageous. The amount of abuse that they took. They claim that they did 125 million meals. Well, at $2 a piece, that's 250 million. But they created all these shell corporations, and then they had a website that created fake names.
Wow.
Now, the Amy Bach there, she was the instigator that coordinated all this. She used to be a welfare employee for the state in various capacities. And evidently she figured out, hey, I can make more money being a nonprofit exec. So she coordinated with all these sub-Saharan immigrants being co-conspirators with her. And she had a boyfriend that was from Kenya. So it's very interesting that how they divvied up all this money with shell corporations. Basically, they really didn't feed anybody out of the 250 million. It's just
how can you get a meal for $2? What was that meal even supposed to be? Is this guy Kenneth Udubak? Is that the Kenyan lawyer?
I don't know. It says there. Let's see the relief. He evidently wasn't involved, but evidently he's another sub-Saharan.
It's interesting.
Let's just spend a second. Let's spend a second on this because Donald Trump got disciplined twice in New York State by Tish James, the Attorney General, over far smaller amounts. And yes, the Trumps were sloppy on paperwork in New York State, but the Clinton Foundation has been operating many different fake charities from New York State since before 2001. They don't get prosecuted. And if we really wanted to encourage donations to charities to help people get fed, it would have been far more efficient to lower taxes federally and in the state of Minnesota and encourage people. Why don't you find charities? Hundreds of thousands of people. Why don't you scour the internet to find charities that actually will feed people? And why don't you care about your own donations? Because the Attorney General won't, and the Commissioner of Finance in Minnesota won't, and the IRS won't. But hundreds of thousands of people, if they found out that they were being defrauded, would make enough of a stink that maybe these crooks in government would do something. I mean, this is not. I don't want to hear some stage freaking conference call about how this goofball and the undemocratically selected presidential nominee are going to get on planes and fly around America pretending to run for office. We're paying a lot of money to these government bureaucrats, and they're stealing it. It's outrageous.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically all they do, right? That call was stupid.
Oh, what person? Remember, this is supposed to be the most important decision that a candidate makes for president, selecting what person who's really vetted everybody, and clearly she did not vet this guy, or her team did not vet this guy with the stolen valor issues that I think are going to sink him before the convention, possibly. Military vets do not like stolen valor at all. It's a very serious crime. And it's more than that. It's dishonoring the armed services and the Constitution. It's ridiculous that she would have selected this guy. And let's say she had vetted him. You seriously going to get on a conference call and say, after the guy says, "This is Tim Walz. Hi, Tim. This is Kamala. Let's do this." I mean, come on.
Calling him like pal and buddy, all that stuff. Like when you are working in an office for so long and the doorman still says, "Hey, guy. Hiya, boss. I know you don't know my name."
Hey, Chief.
Yeah. But Jason, let's start digging into Tim's background while we're at it here.
She should have called him Haas, right? Here we go. This one, Bob? 120 in cash in a bag.
This is interesting. This still deals with that case when they were trying the feeding the future co-conspirators, and they tried to bribe 120,000 in cash to one of the jurors to get an acquittal.
Wow.
And they were offered another $120,000 if the acquittal occurred. Amazing, a bribe. Delivered wads of cash to the house of one of the jurors.
That's crazy. Not just a bribe, a performance spiff. Unbelievable.
Yeah, horse spiff. Yeah. Oh, unbelievable. The length that they go to.
Well, it's expensive to run these campaigns, and you got to have a way of stealing enough money to do that so you can pay off your consultants, and you got to pay off homeless people to show up at rallies. So what better way than to have fake charities that nobody's going to police? And you have the example of virtually every living president. Maybe Carter isn't dirty, but he's stupid. But every other living president is associated one way or another with a crooked charity. Obama's got over $1 billion in his, as of the last report. Why wouldn't, if you're criminally minded, why wouldn't you say, I'm a person of color, I'm an illegal migrant, people are rewarding me, why shouldn't I set up my own charity or work with a charity, and then we can feed entire villages and provinces in our home country? I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. He's building a basketball court, Obama, at the presidential
Is he really?
library. That's what it says with this article. It says,
"Are you kidding
new details on the home court and athletic and programs facility at the Obama Presidential Center." I mean, I guess maybe they'll have paddle boarding classes there, Charles.
Didn't he claim at one point that he was an avid skeet shooter? Is there a skeet shooting range?
I don't know. If you can aim at the paddle boarders.
I wonder if they're going to do midnight basketball.
Yeah. So you got this article here, Bob, about the state auditors uncovering widespread child care assistance fraud. So this is beyond the food thing. They're just taking advantage of everybody in need, huh?
Exactly. And they take it out of state and federal funds. This was $100 million listed as one of the fraud cases.
And this is all just happening in Minnesota? Is that the idea?
Yeah, this is Minnesota. We need to think in the bigger picture about ARP, or the American Recovery Plan. Billions and billions of dollars were handed out to cities, counties, and states. This is just the tip of the iceberg. Think about if you got billions of dollars and you've got a deficit running in the state, and you got that money and you can go blow it on social initiatives, you could buy votes all day long, and that's what they've done.
That's in New York City. I don't know if you see this in Texas in the cities, but in New York City in the summer, there often are you know squads of little kids, and they all have these T-shirts on, XYZ improvement program, ABC, whatever. And my suspicion is that the way this works, first of all, whoever has the T-shirt franchise in the city, is making tons of money. They say the T-shirt costs $20, it probably costs 20 cents. They steal money that way. But when you look through what actually happens to that money, it's probably 80% of it stolen, is my guess. When you cut through 80%, and the kids are worse off. The administrators most often are like 50% overweight, so they're not engaged in healthful activities with the money they steal, and our country is careening towards bankruptcy, right? And what's going to happen? Jim Jordan's going to write a letter,
Well, yeah, the funny thing is I've actually been involved in I was on a bond council for the city of San Antonio. We had over $4 billion of neglect in infrastructure. So when I was on the committee for the streets, we were only getting 250 million out of a new bond issue. And I made an issue that with ARP, we could add another 200 to 300 million out of the 500 million to improve the infrastructure that we desperately needed. And they said, no, we're only going to use it for social programs. And that's exactly what they did. They burned the money.
Look at this. They think rescuing America involves putting masks on little children and training them to not touch each other or have any human contact. This is a bizarre illustration that I hate. This is the American destruction plan.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, Bob, you also had this.
Yeah, I thought what we'd do is we would dig into the governor, and what's going on in the state currently. But this is a new video they've got a terrible problem with homelessness. And this video takes you through various streets showing the problems that they have. All the graffiti, their businesses are putting up gates to protect their business people from it. And you can see all the homelessness. This isn't LA, this is Minneapolis. And they've got a severe problem with homelessness.
Wow. Look at that.
Jesus.
Wow.
I mean, think of the vetting process, right? If Kamala had a vetting process, does it involve, if your preferred potion is marijuana, let's get like a room full of marijuana for the people who want to smoke dope while we vet people. And let's go hijack a liquor truck. So we have 100 different varieties of booze for those who want to get drunk. And let's try to find the worst possible candidate to pair with a buffoon, an idiot in a skirt who's historically running for president as the first woman of uncertain ancestry. We got to get somebody really, really stupid, dumber than Dan Quayle. Who can we find? How do you pick the governor of this hopeless garbage state? I mean, at one point, Minneapolis was a thriving place. It has some very serious companies out there. 3M used to be a good company. General Mills is out there. I think Cargill's out there. A bunch of big companies are out there. Who?
Bob says Target. You got White Castle right here.
but how does Minneapolis get to this place? And the answer is become a sanctuary city and a sanctuary state and reach out. I've traveled in East Africa. It's a desperate place. I mean, I've traveled into the interior, for example, of Kenya, places where people don't go generally. And there's nothing there. You're lucky if you get a dirt sandwich with toilet bowl water, And so you encourage these people. Look at Ilhan Omar. There are serious questions about Ilhan Omar's ancestry and the basis upon which she entered this country. Doesn't she represent Minnesota?
Yeah.
Yep.
And she married her brother and everything. Here is what Google shows us for a rural part of Kenya. They got a lot of sticks,
right.
Charles.
I mean, no wonder they win the marathons. They're running like hell to get out of there. I mean, it's.
I don't know if either of you guys saw this, but earlier Laura Loomer was reporting that FBI counterterrorism agent John Guandolo says that Walz has undeniable ties to ISIS, Hamas, and the Muslim Brotherhood. This is according to Fletch, as reported by Laura Loomer.
I mean, that obviously put him to the front of the line, right?
Well, yeah, if you open up the resume on Walz, he even admits that he was in China, teaching in China. Loomer says he's been there 30 times.
Where is that resume?
It's if you go to his resume on Harris Walz fundraising, and I think if you open up the resume, you'll see that he was in China teaching. So he's got deep connections with China, there's no doubt. It was even on his resume.
Yeah. I don't have that at my fingertips here.
Yeah, I don't have it in the links here, but if we go to
well, rather than search for that, let's keep going with what you've
yeah,
said.
let's go on to George Floyd. I mean, this is one hot mess where for 4 days when they had the riots on George Floyd, what happened is he didn't call in the National Guard, and Trump was pushing him to do it, as well as the mayor.
Oh my God, look at that. I've been there. It is a mess.
Yeah, and so he even went into out there to where they were rioting and wrote about social justice and chalk on the pavement.
Well, and there's a story that his wife bragged that she kept the windows open in the whatever mansion so she could smell what was going on. Who wants to smell that crap?
Yeah.
I mean,
toxic burning.
Talk about weird. Right, before they selected Walz, the way they were going after Vance, the Democrats, using the media, there were non-stop top stories about how Republicans are weird. Yeah. I mean, this is beyond weird.
Well, if you think about it, there's a connection with Kamala in all this because she was part of the raising that bail money for that nonprofit. It was called Freedom Fund, and they were using Act Blue, which was a Democratic money aggregator to collect the donations. If we go to that, we could that link. We can look at that. It's a hot mess. I mean, she was part of that, getting these people back on the street after they committed felonies in Minneapolis.
And she's denying that now, Bob. She says that she didn't do that, but obviously that's false. So wait a minute now. So this Act Blue link here. Oh, sorry. Here we go. This is it. Yeah, the bail fund backed by Kamala Harris freed Minneapolis man charged with murder. She's an absolute idiot.
Well, and let's not forget that she was Attorney General in California and failed to police the Clinton Foundation, which had numerous opportunities to do that. How many crooked charities are out there in California, one of the highest tax places on earth, like New York State? So she's wrapped up all into charity fraud, neglect in prosecuting charity fraud. Yeah. And Kamala Harris's resume of accomplishments is thinner than one slice of Kleenex tissue. I mean, there's what has she actually accomplished that's good? She's got a $62,000 Tiffany necklace somehow, but that's not really an accomplishment.
She got a BMW from Willie Brown. Not bad.
Also,
yeah.
Also pearl necklaces from Willie.
Careful, this is a G-rated show.
That was anyway.
What's true?
We've got more on George. Oh no, that was the George Floyd piece we just saw. So sorry. Now we've got here.
Well, if we go back up there, okay. Yeah, criticism for his response on the protest. What a hot mess he was. He was actually driving it with his behavior.
Ridiculous. Now that looks like him meeting with Crump. That's Benjamin Crump
Yeah.
right there. He's another troublemaker who's always there to create some kind of problem and make money. He's at a rally and remembers, doesn't mention that that's Crump, but I can tell that's from the ears and the shape of his head. That's him.
Yeah. They also had a declaration for George Floyd Day. I think there's a link on that. They just signed that and passed it.
Were they handing out free drugs then?
Probably.
Yeah, everybody. Fentanyl can be the celebrate. Is this it here? Proclamation?
That's it right there. Yeah.
Crazy.
Isn't
So
it
this
amazing?
yeah, it says George Floyd was born in Fayetteville, North Carolina. There's all this whereas stuff. George Floyd remembers that. Unbelievable. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just came out.
That's
To
crazy.
put this in perspective, when I was an intern for the governor of Oklahoma in 1975, they on my last day they issued a proclamation naming a cheeseburger after me. So governors do really stupid things, but honoring George Floyd, I mean, in hindsight, that was another
I'll have the
whole
cheeseburger.
tale. It was good. The journalistic malpractice here in the quote coverage of the George Floyd incident. You know, Donald Trump wears new shoes and has trouble walking down an incline at West Point, and there's hours of coverage of does the 25th Amendment necessary? Do we need to get rid of the guy? The George Floyd incident has never really been investigated the way Jason would do it, or Laura Loomer would do it, or you, Bob, would do it. And if I were black, I would be disgusted that we're honoring George Floyd. Right? He's not an example of somebody who happens to be black, who let's say suffered adversity and overcame the adversities and did something constructive and productive for society. It's hardly the case. This guy wasn't he high at the time?
Yeah, he
Yeah,
died
the
on
autopsy
fentanyl.
shows
Yeah, we can
fentanyl.
open. Yeah, let's look at the autopsy here.
Take us through it, Bob.
Well, if we blow that up on the second page, they're talking about there's no life-threatening injuries, and then they said the blood test, fentanyl, other drugs that were in his blood, methamphetamines.
So 11
Okay.
nanograms per microliter of fentanyl. I mean, it sounds kind of like a lot.
Yeah. But
Don't they
you know,
say
that
that you just like touch this and it kills you or something? Like what? How do we need some medical person to tell us what that?
Yeah,
and then
they
look,
would-
methamphetamine. What the hell is this guy doing? But this is circled, so they must obviously. This is the big problem.
right.
Or he had too
Yeah,
much coffee, also, Bob.
Yeah, he
Caffeine
was. I think
positive.
he was also COVID positive at the time as well.
Oh, well, that must have done it. That put him over the edge.
Well, they should have given him boosters when they were arrested.
Exactly.
You know?
That was the problem. Free French fries from who was the idiot mayor? De Blasio. What else have we got here? Oh yeah, he's into gender affirming care, right?
Yeah, unbelievable.
Very young.
That's
Very
crazy.
young.
Well,
Any
he's
of this-
asking families to bring their children there, you know, where the parents suffer from transhousing, to get them gender changes. Amazing.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's that in Minnesota has always been an odd place politically. They have something there. It's not called the Democrat Party in Minnesota. It's the Democrat Farmer Labor Party or something. It's always had a slice of left-wing lunacy out there. I think in part because before the Somalis got there, there were a lot of people from socialist countries like Sweden, Norway, and other parts of Scandinavia, Denmark, etc., flock for some reason. I guess they like the cold weather in the winter. And they brought with them their socialist leanings. So, socialism is an interesting concept that has never worked anywhere in the world, that is poor, has never worked. It may work in a place like Saudi Arabia that has tons of money, or Norway that has tons of money, but I would argue, and Jason and I have been to Norway and have friends who tell us what's really going on there. It doesn't work. It didn't work in Norway. It didn't work in Scandinavia. It's not working in Minnesota. And it certainly is not something that Americans are legitimately going to vote for November 5th, 2024. So picking this idiot to run around America with another idiot, if you really care about the Green New Deal, I'd say I'm all in for the basement campaign. Walz should stay in his basement. Kamala could stay in one of her basements, either the Naval Observatory or her mansion out in California, and preach sustainability. But this is a stillborn campaign on the merits.
Yeah.
Right. They might win Minnesota, but they're not going to win America.
I would offer that any location that Kamala Harris is in becomes the Naval Observatory, because all she's doing is sitting around looking at her navel. Not much else.
Not Navy, but naval.
Yeah, the Naval Observatory. Actually, I think that's a gentleman's club in New Jersey.
Yeah,
sorry, that's the naval base. Naval base. Anyway, that's the real name of the Bada Bing Club. A lot of people don't know that, Bob. This is good New Jersey trivia for you. Now, what about this issue of he wants tampons in the boys' bathroom? I mean, this guy is just a legitimate idiot.
Yeah. Well, it's all about
Boys'
equity.
bathrooms.
Right. Yeah. It's
Now, wait a minute, though. This is AI, though, isn't it? She didn't actually do that. This is fake.
Could be.
That's AI. I shouldn't even show that. I don't like that. Now, YouTube will say, oh, you have some inauthentic thing there. They're changing a lot of stuff about YouTube. They don't want us, talking about some of these things. He's also presided over this crime explosion, hasn't he?
Oh, absolutely. Here's a report that they did it. If we scroll through it here, just going down, you'll see the various summaries. If you look at statewide crime statistics, up 71%.
Wow.
Unbelievable. If you go up to Minneapolis, look at the carjackings.
Wow.
I mean, homicide. Ooh. Unbelievable. Wow. St. Paul, same thing.
Wow.
Let's just scroll down and see if there's anything else.
That's the end of this document.
Yeah, but he's definitely not a law and order guy, given what happened with, the BLM riots. And then you look at the day to day, it's nothing's improved there. It just gets worse, at the end of the day.
Well, and go back to your charity point. I mean, you covered it extensively at the time. We covered it. BLM at the time, all that money was raised, did not exist. There was no public charity called BLM. And, I don't know that Keith Ellison was Attorney General back then, but whoever was the Attorney General of Minnesota, how did they not notice this? I mean, before you cut a check from the state, and I believe various states cut checks that supposedly went towards BLM, how do you not go into your own database and say, all right, before we wire this money or however we send a check, let's make sure that the fucking thing exists. I think they probably have a department of not doing that. It's like, whoever cuts the check is deaf, dumb, and blind by design.
Yeah. Definitely.
But this red flag law, doesn't this go to, Second Amendment violations and preventing people from having guns through weird, like your family can say, we don't like you, get rid of the gun?
Well, or your neighbor threatened me and I think he's got a gun and you need to go enforce the red flag law and take his gun away because he may kill me. Even though we had a dispute. I mean, red flag laws are very dangerous. And this is one of the leading states to put it into effect. Most states don't have red flag laws.
Yeah. I mean, just from the discussion so far, Minnesota is a place that I never want to go to again. I mean, it's just you cross it off the list. I mean, there may be some very nice people, one or two of them, maybe 10 of them in the state, but the risk is so high there in Minneapolis and St. Paul in the state. The chance of being mugged, killed, having the government persecute you because you're conservative.
Helium until you die in a hotel room. Anything could happen.
Right.
Exactly. That was Minnesota.
Good. Yeah, good call, Jason.
But they didn't investigate that either. They didn't investigate
Yeah,
Peter Smith's death properly.
Right. Of course not. He's conservative in theory.
Bob, what about the ISIS recruits? This is just not getting better.
Well, that's where Laura Loomer says that he has connections, dotted lines to the recruiting the ISIS tied in with China as well. I mean, it's insane.
Well, you guys noticed Donald Trump's reaction to this? You know, when it was first came out, he truth socialed or whatever out the words "thank you."
Yeah. But I feel like this is a trick. Don't you guys agree? I mean, Charles, they can't not possibly think that this is like behind door number 1 is $1 million. Behind door number 2 is you get smacked in the face with a board with nails in it. How is anybody going to vote for these two idiots? I think they're going to replace them at the convention. This can't possibly be who they're going to run.
Well, let's put it this way. If the mainstream media tries to pull a Maduro on us November 5th and say that this team beat Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, then we will know that America has been lost and will never be saved. Because this team, there are across the college campi, as Rush would call them, there are tons of people, 100% of the college campi and the faculty lounge, they love this team. But for the 90% of adults in America who are out there trying to feed their families, pay their rent, save for retirement, this is so far away from what Americans want. And, this is the same group that was talking about Trump is a threat to democracy. Kamala is how I pronounce her name, Kamala, never won one freaking vote, right, to become president. To be nominated president. She didn't win a single vote. And then she selects this moron to replace her should God forbid something bad happen to her. I mean, this is management malpractice. This is ridiculous. Where are the sane people, if there are any, in the Democratic Party? How did James Carville let this happen? How does the money in the Democrat Party finance this bullshit?
Crazy. The other thing, Walz used to be a teacher and he promotes education. And Jason, there's a link there to the outcome of his education programs. We ought to go visit that. Talk about deterioration in education.
Now, where is that?
It's down towards the middle of the second page.
There we go. Public education failure.
Yeah, look at this. This is insane. What has happened to education in Minnesota? Dropped to 19.
Bob, this is a great document. Maybe, I don't know, you might want to publish these links on your Twitter account later. People should follow Bob on Twitter, by the way, if you're not. He's always doing great investigations like this. Bob's got his own YouTube channel that you can subscribe to, Bob Bishop Investigates, and he's got lots of videos that he's done with us and videos that he's done with George Rodriguez documenting the invasion in San Antonio, Texas. George is a fluent Spanish speaker, so you get a lot of really insightful interviews, and people can also follow Bob on X just search for Bob Bishop Forensic Investigator, because this is a long number there, but follow Bob. And then, so the public education issue with this dunce was, where did I put that? There we go. What's he got here, Bob?
Well, you look at it, Minnesota years ago used to have a fabulous education system. Now they're 19th. They're almost in the middle of the pack. I would say
that's
they're probably worse than that even.
Yeah, but Bob, that's ranking them within the U.S. When you look at the U.S. versus the rest of the world, I mean, before is it Randy Weingarten who's the UTA before
president?
Before that idiot opens her pie hole again to give a speech, she shouldn't be allowed to speak until the United States is objectively ranked #1 in the world in education. In math, I think we're below Slovenia. I mean, we're not.
They're actually
nowhere
very smart
near the top of the
in
list.
Slovenia. Slovenian people I've met are really smart. Speak English.
Well, some of them are pretty beautiful, but
Yes.
and smart. But the point is that before we go around telling the rest of the world they've got to fly the pride flag, and here and there, we should be proud of our education. How can you, in good conscience? I'm in the second generation in America of a family that decided. My parents decided, and I did the same thing, that I would not subject my children to public education. So I paid taxes for public schools, and then I paid for private school tuition. And my parents paid for my entire education. I paid for my kids' entire education. It's so bad in New York City. It sounds like it's horrible in Minnesota. And here are these people who can't run a candy store properly. And they now think, with America reeling, beset with internal economic, raging inflation, other problems, too much debt, propensity to start and get behind wars so we can make sure that our armaments companies are making money. This is the team you're going to put forward to try to take on Trump and Vance legitimately? This team?
Well, that's the caveat that you just gave us. Legitimately, I don't think they have that in mind. We had one more thing about ISIS, though. Minnesota's ISIS recruits. This is Abdi Nur. He posted the photo on Twitter. Wow. Amazing. He graduated from Southwest High School in Minnesota and last spring attended Normandale Community College. He left the Twin Cities to fight with ISIS when he was 20. Wow.
Well, you know, if you think about this, how bold they are going overseas, what's going to be happening when the violence is unleashed on our streets with all these illegal aliens?
They're embedded. This is a Gladio operation.
Well, and also draw the contrast, or remember the contrast. The FBI has been investigating parents who are concerned about the breakdown of the educational system as domestic terrorists. Okay, on the one hand, where on the other hand, they're not investigating this guy who is an actual terrorist, whose training has been financed by we the people. I mean, and that idiot Chris Wray will get in front of Congress and say, anytime he asks a tough question, well, I can't discuss matters that are under, can't reveal sources and methods, can't do this. The inmates are running the asylum.
Yeah. Well, I would also add about Ray, about white extremists. That's their biggest concern.
Right.
It's said over and over again when he goes in front of Congress.
And Twitter. They don't like Twitter.
Yeah.
Truthfully, this guy Walz, he looks like the square-headed dude from the movie Up, who inflates his house with balloons, or levitates his house with balloons. He looks like that guy.
Yeah. Either that or Chong of Cheech and Chong.
A little bit of both.
Or or Warren Buffett, really drunk.
He did look a little like Warren Buffett. Well, this is we got to get to this. How did we miss this, Bob? Past DUI arrest. Continue to hound him after conflicting claims.
Well, when they pulled him over, he's doing almost 100 in a 55-mile-an-hour zone. He claimed he was deaf. And that was his problem.
Well, now we know why.
How does that affect speed?
It doesn't. I mean, that's how lame this guy is. If you're going to make up a lie, you could say, I'm rushing home, my wife just had a heart attack or something like that. But look at the blood content, double what it would normally be for,
Seems high.
So again, I asked the question: how, if we could put this together, if Bob could put this together in a short period of time, how did this guy survive being vetted? Who is vetting these people who will go into Kamala Harris's cabinet?
Oh, that's frightening. Yeah.
I think she's going into the medicine cabinet. Every time I hear her speak, she sounds drunk or out of her mind on drugs. She's just an absolute idiot with nothing at all to say. It's just so laughable and just diminishes the prestige of every single American, the history of this country, the fact that an idiot like this would be presented as a candidate for president just cheapens everything that this country has ever been about. It's one of the most disgraceful moments that I'm aware of in our history.
Well, it could be, this is, remember Barack Obama got in trouble as president, in quotes in trouble, for talking about Kamala Harris's looks, her good looks. She was one of the most beautiful attorneys general in the country, or something like that. At a moment in time when there were questions over Obama's sexual orientation. You remember?
He's calling up Montel to see if they can maybe arrange a little kind of thing. I don't know.
Wow.
It's like, hey, Montel, you still have Kamala's number? He apologizes. So, I mean, this is not a joke. How did she? It's unbelievable. She's like the office who gets her way into every position, literally.
Well, and again, this is the person who was selected. Kamala Harris herself has not been vetted, right? Biden, and we don't know how many brain cells were left in 2000. When was it now? 2020 and 21, when he selected Kamala. She won an election in California, but California is a place where Republicans have zero prospect of getting elected. So she basically was selected to be a senator on the basis of an atrocious record as Attorney General. And now she's been.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Well, so based on everything we know and everything that you're telling us here, she's been selected, she's been elevated to this position without being nominated or anybody voting for her or anything like that. How, and nobody has seen Joe Biden. He didn't come on television and say, hey, I told the Navy to send all those boats. We got a war happening, Hamas, Israel, Lebanon, Iran. Aren't we being run by a Politburo right now?
Mm-hmm.
I think we're being run. It's like the West Wing. The premise of the West Wing, the show, which actually was a good show. If you could just, I had a hard time because, the West Wing premise is all Republicans are evil and all progressive Democrats are wonderful and, sacrificing of their personal lives for the benefit of the country and all that crap. But that was a show where basically the president was supposedly an award-winning economics professor. When was the last time we had one of those as president? But he really knew what he was talking about, but he was a liberal. And the show is all about how the staff ran the country. And that's what I think we have here. We've had this for some time. Arguably under Obama we had it, and certainly under George W. Bush. I mean, that boy, my distant cousin, I mean, he is nobody to be proud of. So for a long time, we've had this situation where the president is a president in name only, and these people, the puppeteers, are the ones who negotiate how much, the extended family is going to get from donors, how much of the money is going to be stolen from Iraq and around the world, our different conflicts, and who gets the proceeds. And we, the people, have been just saying, that's fine. I want to, I'm going to go to another cookout, watch a basketball game. How's Caitlin Clark doing in the WNBA? I mean, we are not doing our job here. We got to get these people out of office and into prison where they belong.
Charles Walz was also a COVID tyrant. I don't know if you knew that, but all their documents have little children wearing masks. This is terrible. Oh, he earned an F from the Cato Institute on fiscal policy. Sounds bad.
Surprised it was that high.
Well, don't forget that he did a COVID hotline for people to report other people violating.
Snitch.
Yeah, snitch.
Yeah.
Massive overreach.
What is the status of debating? Is Vance going to debate this idiot?
Well, what's interesting is there's a link there that I gave you, Jason, about him being a weak debater. It's about 2/3 of the way down on that list.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
he won't debate his opponents.
yeah, I could see them going down that kick and saying, you know, the people close to Kamala Harris are dumber than she is. And I can see them now. We've got, you know, Tanya Chutkan's moving one case along, I think, on September 10th. I could see the Democrat mantra be that I, Kamala Harris, am not going to debate a felon, right? Because a felon is, you know, manifestly not qualified to be president of the United States. So I'm not going to debate. And then Walt's saying, well, anybody who would agree to work for a felon is basically a felon. So I'm not going to debate J.D. Vance. I could see them going down this track if they survive the convention.
Yeah. A lot of people in the chat, gentlemen, feel that this is part of a trick, that they know something that we don't know, and that Trump really needs serious security, particularly in light of everything that happened just 3 or 4 weeks ago in Butler. What do you think about that angle,
3 weeks
guys? The concept that they know something that Kamala and Tim will be the choice, and that something will happen to remove Trump.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't want to use the words civil war offhandedly, but there comes a point, and we're seeing it in the UK now. We're seeing, I mean, I don't know if any of you guys have seen and our viewers have seen these videos of throngs. I mean, it's not like 2 people, it's tens, if not hundreds, of militant Islamic immigrants patrolling various villages and portions of cities inside the UK, looking to beat up and maybe kill people who aren't Islamic, shouting out Allah Akbar and all this stuff. And the official approach of the UK government is to go after the people who are complaining about this, not to go after the thugs.
Wow.
You know?
No complaining about riots. It will not be tolerated.
Right.
That's crazy.
Yeah, the beatings will stop when morale improves.
Well, but the other thing, along the lines of what you were saying, I just noticed, Charles, you were saying, well, obviously we're not trying to suggest that there should be, but just acknowledging that conditions are being made, that we had Raskin over here saying some stuff at this Politics and Prose. I don't know if you guys are aware of this bookstore. This is literally right across the street from that weirdo James Alifantis pizzeria place. And here we have Raskin in there basically saying that they're not going to let Trump win, even if he wins the election. What did he say here specifically, Charles? Did you get to see this video at all?
Yeah, there's a provision, I forget which amendment in the Constitution, that deals with people they're meant to be dealing with people who were supporting a civil war akin to the actual one that we had. That those people are not qualified to hold positions of high office, and to advocate to suggest that Donald Trump fits those criteria when we have the in quotes the responsible leadership of the Democrat Party is all in for BLM and what BLM stood for. And Jason and I, you filmed it, Jason. We were behind Hawk Newsom and those rioters from Columbus Circle walking down Broadway. We listened as Hawk Newsom's girlfriend, who was running for Congress at the time, said she's not running to change America. She was running to burn America down. That was her platform. And, you know, the people who participated in those riots in New York City and Minneapolis, very few of them were punished the way they should have been. And, you know,
Charles, they seem to be married. Look at that. I didn't realize that.
Wow. Great name. You know, I mean, it's pathetic that we put up with it. I mean, the people who sit there and say that Republicans are a threat to democracy, when Democrats are trying to literally force someone down the throats, use that advisedly, of the adults in America who care about this country, who understand economics, understand finance, understand that debt and inflation are very dangerous, especially for the poor, and you know, the middle class. This is, you know, what do you call it, Jason, when you accuse somebody of doing something that that you yourself are doing.
Projection.
You know, projection. That's what these people are doing. I mean, this is an undemocratic process in the so-called Democratic Party, and they're now trying to foist a Maduro-style election on us in the United States of America. I mean, it's bad enough what's going on in Venezuela now. Maduro has jailed 2,000 people who opposed him in this election. Even Blinken, who's dumb as a rock, even Blinken and Biden are saying that Maduro's election, I mean, the administration is saying that the Venezuelan election was rigged. And we seem to be hurtling towards another rigged election in this country.
Arresting 2,000 people, he's sort of modeling Joe Biden. Just quickly before we go off of this, Charles, look at this. Remember this little kid who went to some football game or something with his face painted the color of the team or whatever it is, and they said, oh, this kid's in blackface. What about the black kid in whiteface? Sort of the same, right? This kid's not trying to do anything offensive to black people. He's like watching Seinfeld and pretending he's David Puddy. Same with this kid. He's at Halloween or whatever. They're kids. Everything's got to be a ridiculous big deal. And then things that are actual big deals, they're like, let this rapist out of jail. Why not?
Right.
It's ridiculous.
It is.
Now, Bob, do we have more documents here that we haven't? What about friendly surrogacy laws?
Well, that's an interesting one. This, to me, is a situation where it's almost like slavery. And you look at Buttigieg, go look at his children. They did that surrogacy, and they're part black and part white. I mean, it's almost like slavery, and they did it for virtue signaling. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. So
what is this? They're getting healthy young women who want to carry the baby for whoever, and then they're just a surrogate mother.
Right. It's a big promotion.
For money.
For money.
Wow.
While at the same time, in what state where they are, did somebody say that they would give birth to the child and then decide whether to abort it after it was born?
Yeah,
one state where
I forget who that was.
Well, I know Minnesota wanted to have it where it was called relevant or whatever. And they were trying to push that at one point.
Yeah.
Virginia governor said that. That's why he lost, I think, the election.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so that's not good. Well, I don't know, Bob. Anything else in this document? Stolen valor, of course.
There's Buttigieg right there. You can open that up.
Oh, yeah. He's busy breastfeeding. Actually, I found out that the breastfeeding Pete Buttigieg picture was fake. Somebody made that up. And somehow that Pete Buttigieg, it says not found.
Wow.
Did they delete it already, you think? Let's check.
I guess. I mean, I did it this morning.
Maybe some problems. Sometimes Microsoft Word doesn't properly get a link going. They're not there.
That's also disgraceful that we would use the considerable power of technology and the internet and whatever to memory hole things that are not helpful to the cause of destroying America by putting Kamala Harris and this Walz character into control on November 5th, 2024. I mean, this is despicable stuff, right? I mean, because the pipes of communication there's so few channels available, and because the people operating the machinery are hard left and stuck on stupid when it comes to economics, finance, and the law. Look how they are shaping public opinion by denying ready access to information that we should be evaluating to make a very important choice on November 5th. It's outrageous.
Well, it's the same thing they've been trying to do for 7 years, to just completely shut down Crowdsource the Truth, shut out anybody that wants to come and appear on here, anybody that wants to listen to what we talk about, and just drive people to either corporate news or, whoever it is that will kowtow to them and limit what they speak to approved opinions and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I mean, I've been out of the country. I've been out of the country since July 26th, but I'm curious. I mean, where is Joe Biden? When was the last time that he took serious questions? Was it in that fake news conference? Was that the last time?
Well, here's from 3 hours ago. They're saying that he's talking exclusively with CBS News Morning about withdrawing from the race and the threat of Trump. He might win and actually fix some of this mess, and it's a threat to them, but I guess he's talking to CBS.
But that's a fake interview, right? I mean, you negotiate the amount of time, they tape it, they'll say, if you run this, you're never going to see a Democrat again. They put pressure on CBS. This is not I'm talking about, when Donald Trump went to Singapore, I think it was, to meet with Kim, and the meeting didn't come off. And I think I'm remembering this correctly. He got up, and I want to say for him, it was like 2:30 in the morning, Washington, D.C. time, stood up on a podium and took questions from like 150 people for over an hour. Joe Biden has never done that as president. Never. And with lost in this mess, how much money has the Biden family stolen through his brother, through his sister, through his sons? How much have they stolen in his decade-long career of grifting? I mean, public service. Press isn't covering that now.
He's been getting on the wrong plane. He doesn't know what the hell he's doing is part of the problem.
Right.
And
and how about
didn't get on the wrong plane?
Well, and how about Doug Emhoff? Forget the affair for a second, and we'll put that on the side. I mean, we wouldn't want to bring up Bill Clinton, but how did Doug Emhoff make his money? Right? How did he acquire his wealth? How did he pay for this mansion? What was he doing for DLA Piper? What was DLA Piper doing for the Communist Party of China and communist-affiliated entities around the world? Right? And what has Doug Emhoff done as second gentleman, or whatever you call him? What are his initiatives?
My understanding is the two of them don't even live together.
Wow. That makes sense. That's the first thing we've heard about Kamala Harris. That actually makes sense.
He lives out in Santa Barbara, and she lives in the Naval.
Wow. Well, yeah, I don't know what he does. Don't they usually need some kind of like school lunch? He could make grilled cheese at Grateful Dead shows or something. He doesn't do anything.
Well, remember that picture of Kamala dancing with the school children? That video? And Emhoff is in that video too. He's on the right-hand side.
This is just a wreck right here. This woman can't be president. With this crazy daughter who thinks she's a model. I mean, that's just what?
And raising money for Hamas.
Terrible.
Yeah.
After October 7th, she's raising money for Hamas. And J.D. Vance and Donald Trump are weird. Are you freaking kidding me?
It's crazy.
I mean, for one thing, J.D. Vance is married to an actual person of color who was a standout graduate of Yale and Yale Law School, who clerked, I think, for the Supreme Court, his wife. He's got 3 kids with her. They're trying to brand him as a redneck from Appalachia.
Not working. I think, but Charles might have frozen. Charles, did we lose you?
I'm here.
Oh, okay. Yeah, they're not going to brand him. They're not going to brand him as a redneck. It's not going to work. I just don't see this going anywhere. I think this is another one of these kind of stipulated realities where they're trying to tell everybody that, oh, she's doing better in the poll. No, nobody likes or wants to vote for Kamala Harris. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and let's not forget that Hillary Clinton was disciplined, or the campaign was disciplined by the Federal Election Commission for rigging the Democratic primary of 2015 and 16. She rigged that primary. And in fact, in 2020, there was no primary.
Look at
right?
this, guys. Charles, look at this. Harris seeks to learn from Hillary Clinton's campaign. No kidding. She's going to lose.
Yeah. Well, and what's she going to do next? Set up the Harris Foundation?
No, lose again. She's taking a page out of Hillary Clinton's book.
No, she's wearing the pantsuits.
Go from one loss to the next. It's like strength to strength, loss to loss.
Yeah. And the stories about how at her various events they're paying homeless people to show up at her events.
Oh,
Wow.
yeah.
You seen that?
Cheaper than giving away a free Jeep, I think. Now, Bob, you had this thing about fixing elections, but for some reason, private money helped pay conduct. Let me see if I can find this because the link wasn't working.
Huh.
Not finding it. It's weird. Yeah, sometimes, I don't know. Bill Gates is not that smart. He can't seem to make a hyperlink survive saving a Word document. I don't know where that went, but something's going on. Banning private money. Is this the same idea? That's Wisconsin. I don't know. That link wasn't. What was the story about, Bob?
Well, you get down to it, you've got the Somalians and others. They're very good at harvesting ballots, and what they do is they go and get these people to file their absenteeism vote, and they would fill out the form and then go file it for them. So essentially, what they were doing as ballot harvesters were actually voting on the behalf of the absentee voters, which makes total sense where they want to rig the election.
I mean, that's obviously the
yeah.
only hope.
Yeah.
Well, you bring up an interesting point. The Kenyan election, when Obama was senator, and his relative was one of the candidates, and he didn't win. I believe there are credible allegations that Obama used his influence to the approach that his relative took is that he was going to burn the country down if he didn't get it, included in a senior way in the election, though he had lost.
Wow.
Which is kind of what social justice is all about. You threaten to burn things, and then you don't burn them, so you get that. Your reward is you get what you want. I mean, this is what Obama did as senator, and you're not supposed to. There's only supposed to be one foreign policy of the United States, and it's carried out by the president and the Secretary of State and the State Department. And here's Obama as a senator saying, no, I've got these ties to Kenya. I'm going to use my influence to help my relative, get more influence in an election which he lost, and he didn't legitimately deserve to have any influence in Kenya. I mean, this is the kind of stuff they do. And we just say, well, okay, that's fine. No problem. Give him another Netflix deal. Give him another book deal.
That story's been kind of memory hold, Charles. When I search for that, I'm finding only stuff about something Obama did with Kenya when he was president. They don't want you to really look into this Senate business.
I think Jack Cashel has written about that extensively. Jerry Corsi's written about it in books that you can't. I mean, you could probably say there aren't going to be links to it, but the books exist. I own them.
Here we go. This is Jack. Barack Obama's half-brother fails to win seat in Kenyan elections. Is that it or no? No, that's different.
Yeah, that's it.
Oh, is it?
No, what year is it?
11 years old, it says, 2013. So it's not the same.
There was one before that
when he was Kenya elections, it seems, huh?
Right, exactly. Because he has no. Well, actually, I tell this is an absolutely true story. So in 2009, I was flying from London to Boise, Idaho, and I go to check in at the British Airways counter, and there's a woman of either Indian or Pakistani origin who is checking me in, and she says to me, "Do you have a visa?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" And she said, "Well, you're going to Canada." And I said, "No, I'm not. I'm going to Boise." She said, "Boise's in Canada." I said, "No." It was like a scene out of Monty Python. It took me
you should
10
have
minutes.
told me you're the ambassador to Idaho. Let me in.
Right. And so then I get to my seat, And it's a bank of 3 seats, and there's a guy sitting, an African or a black person sitting by the window. And he, it's a long flight from London to Seattle. So eventually we started talking. What are you up to? And I explained what I was up to. And then I said, what are you up to? He said, well, I'm in the Kenyan State Department. And we're so delighted that we have a Kenyan person as president of the United States. I said, what are you talking about? He whips out a binder, and he's got pictures of the Barack Obama memorial that they're setting up in some place outside Mombasa in Kenya. He's got all this PR stuff from Kenyan newspapers bragging about it, his relatives bragging about it. And I was dumbfounded. But I didn't follow up on that at that time. I was focused on GE and financial fraud, and so I just let it slide. But that event definitely happened. He was definitely in the Kenyan State Department. He was a young guy. He definitely had all kinds of government materials that were alleging that Barack Obama was Kenyan from the Kenyan government.
Wow. Something else. You really learn a lot on planes. We've been through quite a lot of material. We actually haven't even gone to the First Amendment Forum, but I don't know, Bob, is there any stuff that we haven't covered that is still important to discuss about tampon Tim Walz?
I think we covered it, within an hour, which is substantial, I think. I mean, there'll be more coming out, to say the least.
Absolutely. And Charles, I don't know, you've got limited time. I don't know if we're going to have time for a First Amendment forum, or have we covered everything that you want to discuss? I mean, I've got all the time that we could want. I just don't want to make any assumptions about your schedule. Anything else you'd care to discuss?
I'm free to do First Amendment forum if you want, or just to end this wonderful broadcast here, which I think covers a lot. It's great to get Bob.
Yeah. At your pleasure,
it's
Charles.
Great to get
this
Bob.
Is completely up to your schedule.
All right. Well, why don't we end it here, and hopefully Bob can get some play out of this and have a great summer.
Yeah. People can follow Bob, subscribe to his YouTube channel, Bob Bishop Investigates. You can also follow Bob on X. He's there. Just to search on people who I'm following. He's Bob Bishop.
I would add that if you click on that LinkedIn connection, a lot of the articles that I publish on various blogs like Zero Hedge, Gateway Pundit, etc. I've got a large catalog there that they can read.
Bob has been doing a lot of forensic accounting investigations and all kinds of incredible stuff. He's super good at getting criminals into trouble. Appreciate you coming on the show, Bob, and joining Charles and myself. And I appreciate everybody who is sponsoring the show. If you haven't had a chance to see my interview earlier today with New York Times photographer Doug Mills, we spoke in depth about this amazing photograph that he took of the bullet whizzing by Donald Trump's head. And he was a really nice guy. I encourage people to check that out. And also, if you enjoy this kind of reporting, please become a sponsor on odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com, or subscribestar.com, or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. As we're signing off here, gentlemen, I'm being told by Brad Pitless, and I saw this before we went on, the FBI has raided Scott Ritter's house. I think he went to dinner with Robert Kennedy, and so I don't know exactly what's going on with that. I don't personally know Scott Ritter, but I did see that. Watch out for the FBI, everybody. And Bob, thanks for joining us. Have a great night. Charles, enjoy your day there in this undisclosed international location, and thank you both.